Hi, everyone, and welcome to Stop the Scroll and Sell Through Social Media. I'm Taryn Hardis, Senior Content Marketing Manager at ABC Fitness. I'm happy to introduce our guest, who is an absolute expert on branding and selling through Instagram, Car Brulhart. Car, so excited to chat with you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Car is a brand marketer and Instagram expert, coaching online coaches and service-based entrepreneurs to grow their businesses without ads. She's grown her account to 60K followers organically and makes multiple six figures year over year. She's also worked with Instagram directly on how to use the platform for business growth. Plus, she's my go-to for everything Instagram for the last 5 years. So, Karin, we've got some questions for you today. Excited to hear your perspective. Starting off, a lot of the coaches and personal trainers watching today may not have a following built yet, or they have a community, but maybe they've seen their reach and their engagement drop over the last few years. It can be a challenging space on Instagram. So, what do you recommend for kind of like mindset with the platform and where to start with content in 2025?
Engagement rate. So first, I just want to say that engagement has been plummeting year over year since basically 2020. I've looked way back into that, and it's totally normal to think that it's only happening to you or that there's something wrong with you or you're not likable or your offer sucks or whatever. And the first thing I want to say is that it happens to everybody. Even the biggest accounts take engagement hits. And that's largely in part because there's so many different algorithms at play and there's so many different things at play all the time that we're just not privy to. So I feel like for somebody who is taking Instagram seriously, is choosing Instagram as their platform of choice, I always say to people, Instagram is a long game. And if you do choose to use the platform, it's not something that you post for 30 days and you build a community and you have sales from that. It's definitely going to be something that has to be a part of your long-term marketing strategy. And so don't take things so personally, I would say.
Okay, I think that helps a lot. Similar related, I saw you speak recently in your controlled refresh workshop, and you blew my mind talking about like the types of content that people want to see in their feeds. You were saying how like we used to think it was all about educating your audience, but now it's a little more about like escape and feeling seen. Can you talk a little about that based on what you're seeing that works well right now?
Yeah. So when we think about what's working on Instagram, what people are gravitating towards, think about like your own preferences with the people that you're following, with the content you engage. We have gone from, I would say, from 2020, maybe early 2021 into 2022. Educational content was the bread and butter. You could post anything, 3 tips about this, 4 tips about that, 3 ways. And that was a surefire way to grow and get engagement. And because of the rise of AI and the tsunami of AI, now educational content just gets lost in that kind of swamp, like in that swamp of content, right? There's so much content being produced right now that old educational content just doesn't do it for people anymore. And so what I have called it is people are now authentically observing. And this goes back to support the fact that engagement has been plummeting year over year, but users are still active inside of the app. So what does that mean? It means that people are scrolling, and instead of liking or sharing something or saving it even, they're just authentically observing. And if it's relevant to them, they make a note of it, or they'll reach out to you in the DMs, or they'll go to your profile, follow you, grab your lead magnet, buy something. But you can see this directly, even if you go to my account. I used to get like 3 to 4,000 likes on posts, and I'll be lucky if I get 1,000 likes. Like, I'm just not hitting those numbers. But the beauty is that I am making more money with less engagement. And there's a lot of data that supports all of this, meaning that more awareness equals more conversions. And so we need to be thinking about that when we're creating content, is that, yeah, maybe this post only lives for 24 hours in their stories, or, this carousel post might not get a ton of traction after 1 month of being live, but it's so important for your ideal client, your ideal buyer, your ideal follower to see you showing up consistently and seeing this type of content and the types of content that they're wanting to engage with. I've got three types. So one is it real and relatable? So that type of content is going to be really awesome for calling people in, having them feel seen, having them like really want to share it. You know, the real and relatable content, that's the stuff you're sending to your sister at 10 p.m. at night, right? So that's the type of content. The second type is content that challenges an assumption or invites curiosity. So if someone has a spoken hook that says something contradictory to what you might think, you're going to pause and you're going to watch that video. And so these look a lot like talking to camera reels. They can look like green screen, where someone is leveraging maybe a viral video that's gone really well, and then they give their 2 cents or they totally go against what that person's saying. So that's a really good type of content. And then the third type is the type of content that gives you a moment of pause and ease. And this doesn't have to necessarily be like a meditation or a mindfulness type of piece of content. It can look like that, but it can also look like curation. It can feel like I land on your page and I'm like, oh, I feel at home here. Like she's talking to me. This type of content really speaks to me, or the visual design of it really speaks to me. I can't tell you how many people tell me that they buy from me because of the way my content looks and how it makes them feel. So these moments of pause and ease, they can also be your thoughts on what's going on in the world. They can also be your thoughts on how you're living that's maybe different to what, you know, the norm is, for example. So moment of pause and ease is really, really important. And if we can get over the fact that the vanity metrics are no longer informing our content, then we have so much more freedom to create and show up from a place of authenticity, which is ultimately what's going to get you not just followers, but build you that community that stays with you year over year.
I love that. I love thinking about, yeah, exactly. What are people sending to like their loved ones on, you know, like a Wednesday night before they go to bed, or like thinking of the mindset of someone who's scrolling and like looking to feel something. So I think that's super valuable. Also in that workshop, you talked about the difference of, you know, content for brand growth and reach versus content for conversion and sales. And you touched on it a little just before this, but can you talk about the differences there and like the types of content, the messaging, and like how do you apply that in your own business and in your own content?
Yeah, so I feel like people get really tripped up on Instagram about selling and then just like showing up to grow or to build that community, right? Or nurturing content. And I just want to like liberate you from that. And I want to let you know that there's this myth that, and I think this is, as marketers, I've got a marketing background, Taryn's a marketer. We have been trained to create campaign specific content, right? So maybe there's a new launch of an app or there's a new yoga mat. And so we do like this concentrated push of content for a short period of time that only talks about that one thing for 10 days and then it's done. And all that content is created and designed to look very different from the regular day-to-day content. And so what I want to say is for Instagram, for us small businesses, coaches, service providers, maybe we own a gym, you do not need to differentiate your content that's serving to sell, to convert, from the content that works to grow and nurture your audience. So that's already amazing. And it's really, really simple. And I love to simplify Instagram for people because it doesn't need to be complicated. So if you go to my page, you'll see that a lot of my sales content, and by the way, I'm selling in almost every single post, and I still have nonstop community coming in. I make sales constantly. And I have built trust. So it's not just like that people feel like they're constantly being sold to, but you'll notice that my content doesn't look very different. I just closed the cart to my signature program at a special price, and all the content that I created had different goals, right? And it still looked the same. So if I created a reel that I knew would give somebody a moment of pause and maybe make them rethink the way they've been told we should think about success, I created a similar post a while ago just to grow the account. And so the only difference is really like in the messaging, in that caption, is giving people a guiding call to action that's very concrete, that takes them to the next step. So I would say if you take anything away from this, make sure that when you're creating content, you're always guiding people to the next step, and don't assume that people know what the next step is. So we need to be like really repetitive, and the content needs to be repetitive as well. So that can also liberate you a lot from thinking you need to reinvent the wheel or have a brand new post every day. You can repurpose content. You can take content that's performed for you well in the past, rejig it, and include different calls to action, whether they be conversational or a guiding call to action with next steps.
Totally. I see that all the time where people say, like, if you want to work with me, get in touch. And it's like, it's too vague. It's like, it needs to be like, do this one thing to get this other thing, and kind of helping people understand why they should take action.
Yeah, be really specific about those transformations as well.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think it's that great, or if you're like, well, someone else offers something similar, like it doesn't matter, because when we go back to those authentic observers who are looking at your content, they're going to either connect with you because it was real and relatable, or because it challenged an assumption, or because you gave them a moment of pause and ease, and they're going to go looking for ways to work with you.
Love that. Yeah, and I think you were just mentioning it as well with like the repetitive nature of like making sure to hit that messaging repeatedly. People might not see every single post, so you need to be consistent. I think that kind of relates to the concept you used to teach about, which was like hero posts, like those go-to messages, those go-to stories. Can you explain what that is? And is that still something you'd recommend for like a personal trainer watching today?
Yeah, so a hero post is basically just your best performer. So if you know me, you know that I love the data. I like to look at the analytics and really inform the content based off of what Instagram is really telling us is working. And so there's a really simple way for you to identify your top performers, and those are your hero posts, right? So your top performers, they're not only, this always helps, right? They usually have a lot of likes. They will have multiple shares or several shares, and they'll bring in followers. So beyond that, though, we need to be also measuring, is that post, beyond those vanity metrics, is it bringing in an email lead? Is it bringing in a DM that triggers the freebie, or is it triggering a question about my one-to-one service? And so when we look at the data, when you look at your top performers, they usually give you a really clear kind of idea of the type of content that you can be creating more of, depending on those goals. The one caveat I would say is I don't teach hero posts the same way I used to in 2020, 2021, only because now I've noticed that sometimes a post will do really, really well, and then you'll do the same thing again, and it just flops. And the reason can be multifaceted, but sometimes it even just has to do with the trending audio that you used. And so it can be a little bit like random sometimes, but kind of a workaround that you can do, which I do teach now, is that there's a new feature in Instagram called trial reels, and they're in the draft section. So if you have a reel and you put it in your drafts, you'll find trial reels there. But what they are, in essence, is they're like an opportunity. Think about it as an opportunity to A/B test your content. So you can post a reel and Instagram will only show it to non-followers. So I have seen a lot of success myself bringing in new followers from trial reels. I've seen a lot of people growing by thousands. It's not a silver bullet. Nothing on Instagram is, but with Instagram, if you can be an early adapter on these new features, they do tend to reward that. So don't sleep on trial reels right now to see, if you've had a post that's gone really well for you, a reel, go ahead and post that in multiple different versions on trial reels. Like just change your hookup 3 different ways, or that's not the hook, but you know what I mean? Like three different formats, and post it to trial reels and see how that performs.
I've seen people talking about that in like the content marketing space of having a lot of success with reaching new audiences with that. I haven't played around with it myself, but maybe I will after this.
Yeah, it can be also depressing. Like I've had some
Yeah.
reels get like literally 3 views. I'm
Yeah,
like, this doesn't make sense.
I've heard that. Okay, wait. So this ties into my next question, which is like, I feel like carousels are cool again. I feel like everyone, like influencers, tech companies like Shopify, they're all doing these like content dumps with like photos and videos. It's like obviously an easier way to create content than having to like film and cut and edit your reels. But are they a good approach? Do reels still get more reach? Like, what about stories and DMs? Like, what are you seeing working?
Yeah, so every account is different, caveat, but when you look at the data, it shows that carousels are basically a little bit ahead of reels in terms of engagement. So carousels are back, you're right. They never left though. Some might argue they never left.
Right.
And I love carousels. I tend to post more carousels than reels. But again, look at the data, look at what's actually bringing in those followers, those leads, those conversions, and give yourself a break.
Mhm.
Like I said at the beginning, Instagram's a long game. This is not like we're going to post for a month or 2 months or 3 months and then we've got this amazing business. So you have to find a way to make content creation sustainable for you. And carousels are a really nice path for that. So absolutely experiment with those carousels. The one thing I will say about carousels is that there's kind of two boxes people can fall into. One is that they'll take a template from Canva that's basically like a colored background and then just block text in the middle and your watermark on the bottom, and they'll just dump a bunch of information on those and post it. Don't do that. Instead, and the other camp is like the people that just post like whatever they're doing that day with no context. Don't do that either. We want to have something that feels really curated. I've been talking about curation a lot with my group because people are interested in how you think, how you move about the world, how you do things differently, and how you get people success. That's how they're deciding whether or not to even trust you, to work with you, to follow you. And so if you can start documenting things, and the way I do this is I will just take photos if I've like done my makeup or the house is clean. I'll take photos or the sun's shining nicely, and I'll make sure that I have like a library to pull from when I need a carousel. And then instead of just doing like a traditional photo dump, which is like what a lot of people tend to do, right? Which is like, oh, here was my lunch and then my trip and then my outfit. You're instead going to put some text on these pages of your carousel and just tell people a very simple, short story that attracts curiosity. And you can get into it more in the caption,
I feel like
right?
you do such a good job of mixing that like personal with the business and with the work that you're doing. And I think a lot of coaches in the fitness space can learn from that because they're selling themselves as a brand ultimately, and people have to trust you to work with you. And so weaving your personal in, I think really helps. And like you say, if you have a good photo op, like capture it and then figure out how to use it later. That's great advice.
Yeah, and really think like a business person, right? And I feel like not enough people say this out loud because it might hurt some people's feelings, or it might be like, well, but this is like I'm sharing my life, like, or I don't want to share my life. But if you are building a personal brand, like Taryn says, people want access, and you can still do it in a way that respects your privacy. Just look at my account. Like I don't show my kids, I never share my location in real time. I don't tag my friends and family. So there's some privacy there, at least I assume there is. But yeah, you do need to treat it like a business, and people want to know who you are, and they're not just buying your service, they're buying you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This ties in perfectly with my last question. So, the theme from today is really like human connection, engaging customers and clients in the age of AI. And I think social media, like it's fundamentally all about relationships and building that trust. And sometimes we get a little too focused on the algorithm or the technology of the platform when it is that like relationship piece. So, just for you personally in your business and your account, what's your favorite kind of like tactic or trick to engage your community and get people talking?
Yeah. So what's funny and something I've noticed on my account a lot is that we're not having discussions in public, meaning in the comment section anymore. And you can see this. This is a trend I've seen since definitely mid last year, but specifically highlighted once the US came into a new administration, where people are moving their communities private. And so something that I have done, which has been amazing, that's also helped me not just foster community, but see increase in sales, is to take my community off of Instagram into a private space on Circle. And what you can think about is if you want to stay on Instagram, you can create broadcast channels, you can create something in the DMs, but really thinking about where can you give people additional value, access to you, so that they have that the idea of what it's like to work with you. They see how your brain works, and they see that this isn't just like an Instagram play. We don't own our audiences on Instagram. It's essentially like we're renting, we're on leased land. So I would 100% recommend have an email list as a starting point, right? Start with a weekly email series. You don't need to have a crazy freebie yet, just a weekly email series where you're curating and you're making it valuable for people. And then from there, and with Instagram helping you, start taking people off to your private community, whether that's a paid membership or it's a free membership or it's a monthly Q&A with you, or it's a free trial to one of your modules, or it's a free whatever, right? But thinking really about people are really prioritizing private spaces for learning, connection, and growth. And we can let Instagram foster that for us and take people off.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well said. And that's what we're seeing like as a huge trend in the fitness space right now is that, yeah, people are wanting, they're interested in one-on-one coaching, but they want that community element. They want to talk to other people going through the same things as them. And we're seeing that adopted like in our app using like challenge features and group chat features. And like, it's a perfect way to kind of foster like a safe environment, a safe community that's not, being indexed or added to Google or showing up in your like public persona. So yeah, I think that's perfectly said.
Yeah, amazing.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for doing this. There's so many great takeaways there for our coach community. And we'll share all of your info at Carpool Heart on Instagram. We'll share more about the social department. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And if you have any questions about anything I talked about or didn't talk about, just send me a DM. I'm happy to chat. And thanks, Taryn.